So I want to welcome everyone to our last event in our Readings in Contemporary Poetry. My name is Christine Howe. I'm the Education Associate here at DIA. Unfortunately, Jasmine Raymond, the co-curator for this event, couldn't make it tonight. The Reading Contemporary Poetry series is made possible in part by Barbara and Charles Wright and an anonymous donor. I'd also like to give a special thanks to the folks here at DIA who've made this possible: Patrick Heilman, Sarah Kovach, Jean Dreskin, Rebecca Rice, Nikki Sebastian. So thank you for all their help with the event. Just a reminder, we are to join us for a series of public programs in conjunction with our Kujang-A exhibition. It unfolds in 3 locations at Dia Beacon, the Hispanic Society of America, and the Dan Flavin Art Institute. On May 21st, multidisciplinary scholar Mabel Wilson will be giving a talk about Kujang-A's piece at the Hispanic Society of America, which is on 155th Street and Broadway. And on July 21st, editor, poet, translator Matvey Yankelevich will give a poetry reading at the Dan Flavin Art Institute in Bridgehampton, Long Island, in conjunction with the piece that's up there as well. So you can find more information about that on our website. And without further ado, I want to introduce our co-curator, Vincent Katz.
Thank you, Christine, and thank you all for coming out tonight on this beautiful evening that's somehow turning into spring. So we will have a reading by Brenda Iijima, followed by a short break, and then Michael Lally. Brenda Iijima was born in 1967 at the foot of Mount Greylock in North Adams, Massachusetts. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree from Skidmore College, where she also studied painting. She's the author of Around Sea, O Books, 2004, Animate, Inanimate Aims, Litmus Press, 2007, Revolution, Displaced Press, 2009, and If Not Metamorphic, Asata Press, 2010, as well as numerous chapbooks and artist books. She is also the editor of Eco-Language Reader, published by Nightboat Books in 2010, in conjunction with Brenda's own press, which I'll say more about in a moment. Currently, she is working on a body of work titled Some Simple Things Said by and About Humans, a chronicle of how humans have used animals as surrogates. She is also doing research on women who were murdered in North Adams during the 1970s. Brenda Iijima is a hybrid figure. She is full of fiery energy, and you are never sure exactly how it will manifest itself. With her press, portable press at Yo-Yo Labs, for most of the past decade, Iijima has produced a string of remarkably designed and produced books. Books of poems by her ever-widening circle of consciousness. They are also artist books designed by Iijima. They were the first work of hers I knew and impressed me by their visionary ambition and commitment to that timeless task of spreading the word. When I became aware of Iijima's poetry, I was amazed by the sophistication of her verbal interplay. In Animate, Inanimate Aims, the language is in service of the mythology. From the first line in the book, prostrating before the golden figure, we are in the midst of a primal rite. Quote, chagrin of the maidens bleeds, shackle as sharp complication, quote. In the second poem, a connection between ancient grass and the postmodern moment is made literal in the words, polis pushed outside, quote. While later, quote, sex takes charge of vicissitude, quote. Iijima juxtaposes words and phrases in ways that show her involvement with language poetry's concerns with diction and syntax. Yet, it is her particular concern for a common archaeology that is impressive. Just a second. I want to read a quote from her book, Animate, Inanimate Aims. This is a quote from her poem, Crater's Edge. You might call a still life by Caravaggio a form of pornography. Gluttonously the ripe fruit rot is splayed, how engorged the grapes are. Technicolor sense of succulence with no flavor, just the topmost oily sheen seen. Bones to prop up flesh filled out with pink malaise, or the sacrifice religiously. Penthouse still. Still, I appreciate its meditation on color and the molecular disturbance of oozing fruit in relation to meat, a shank of ham. Iijima's feminist and increasingly ecological concerns make themselves felt in two new bodies of work, from which she'll be reading tonight. Some Simple Things Said by and About Humans, and Untimely Death is Driven Out Beyond the Horizon. Ultimately, it is a sense of shared existence that is Iijima's essential tone. Please welcome Brenda Iijima.
Thank you, Vincent. It's great to be here, reading with Michael Lally. Just to make myself feel comfortable, I thought I'd talk extemporaneously for a second and introduce you to my hometown. Actually, you're seeing some footage that my mother, who is legally blind, shot. And in a minute, when I press the button, you'll see me dance a spasmodic dance as a witch. I've been trying to sustain media attention around the themes of toxic waste, certain murders that took place that relate to women in my hometown, and heroines, and the witch is an extension of that. I read the book, Sylvia Frederici's book, Caliban and the Witch, and it left a deep impression. So before I play this little video, I'm going to read this short statement that is in the middle of this book, Revolution. North Adams, during the time when I was growing up, was a very impoverished, rather bafflingly violent place. In the late 1970s, early 80s, North Adams had the highest per capita murder rate in the nation. There was a string of unsolved crimes against women, and these crimes would be written up in the town newspaper, but would then seem to evaporate from consciousness. I discussed these latent, absented events with childhood friend Tammy Fortin and my mom, Erica Uckman, and invited them to help me choreograph a dramatic unfolding of one of these crimes, not as it took place exactly, because no one knows the exact details, but rather an attempt to chronicle the residual physical and psychic energy of confrontation and struggle that is palpably present at the site of this crime. The crime I'm referring to was the abduction and murder of an 18-year-old woman named Lynn Burdick. Her murder remains unsolved to this day. All of us were familiar with Lynn because we'd buy candy from her at the Barefoot Peddler country store, a convenience store owned by her cousin. This series of photographs in this book, which this is different, was taken on the morning of Friday, July 24th, 2009, where Route 2, the Mohawk Trail, intersects Shaft Road in Florida Mountain, Massachusetts, about 1 mile up a mountainous pass from North Adams. On April 17, 1982, Lynn Burdick was abducted from the Barefoot Peddler country store. She lived with her family a few hundred yards from the store. My mom, Tammy, and I collaborated on a series of dramatic physical movements that seek to acknowledge the physical confrontation and violence that Lynn experienced. Together, we forged a body language that hopes to convey her trauma. An act of violence to an individual female seems unaccountable. Yet, in speaking amongst ourselves while working on this project, we all attested to the fact that we carry with us the sadness of Lynn's disappearance. What I understand as embodiment, the predicament of the body. has been greatly influenced by what had occurred to Lynn Burdick. The store was a small wooden structure painted red. During the day, as I remember, the interior of the store was streaked with gray, ambient light from a window that faced Shaft Road. I fondly recall entering the store many times on a Saturday or Sunday morning before a hike with my Uncle Alfred. We'd head to Bog Pond, Bugsby Trail, or one of the many trails that entered the 3 state forests abutting Florida Mountain. So I read that little snippet because it coincides with my inclination to become an artist. And after realizing that I couldn't quite stick to one medium, I thought of the term smart. So instead of saying I'm a dancer or a poet, I say I make smart. So I'm a smartist. And now I'm going to try to play you this video. So I grew up, my front yard, my parents' front yard is right here, and my mom is videoing this. It's very crude and unedited.
Brenda, you're out of the picture. Yeah, that's the better side. See, because he's kind of to the right.
Thank you. Okay, hopefully that'll go away now. So the newest work that I'm working on right now is called Untimely Death is Driven Out Beyond the Horizon. And I just want to preface this by saying that a very special person, dear friend, great poet Leslie Scalapino passed away a year ago. And so this is an ongoing communication beyond the event horizon. Culpability, human complex, accompanied by internal infrastructure. The story begins in reckoning with skin, representing. People try to escape, built into the disaster, its subcutaneous layer, gelatinous as in seeing a waterbed to lay our coffins in. Sticky organ groves in heat, spring's tangible weather. A wound bursts open along a surgical suture where the lips were drowned in effigy. Do I mean efficacy? Displacements on the dime. Vein lines of oil piped to our standards of living with red matter, each equivalency an oblivion chamber. Sarcastic plumes raid the cloud commons, feel global disturbances through skin, sex. As tongues touch, we know we are communicating. Oscillate orb allostasis model. To be symptomatic means to not pathologize the breath. Shuttle boxes trap. Galvanic skin response, see here, prosody. Amazed avoidance, de-learning coping mechanisms. Welded steel frames that display eminence, say not give me, but here's what we didn't extract. Fuck that along the curve of some democratic intake. Like gold, it is a hedge. White hoods over their heads in their post-Y2K world, a hallucinated voice that dictates what you should do. They walk in the garden and pick from the abundant fruit. The garden is cultivated, but this is assumed. A garden scrubbed clean of threat, sanitized dirt. The garden succumbed to the war. This garden was blasted from outside, spent uranium-laced warheads, dribble-drabble dust storm, burning oil rigs in the desert. Pump when you can, yeah, man. These gardens are monitored by the agents. The agents carry weapons and drive Jeep Grand Cherokees. The gardens exude a tameness. There is a wall around the garden. A garden fantasy is possible. Gossamer apparition, ecstatic configuration. In order to achieve a vivid acid green for the species green, sprinkle on atricide. A lawn is carpeting for the outside sense of living. A garden is the frontier extension of a room. Photo insert, garden courtyard of the Butner Federal Correctional Facility, the largest medical psychological complex in the federal prison system. How much time and effort do you want to spend on your private outdoor space? Are weeds and pests a concern? Kempt. In an airy, strapless sundress, she falls to the lawn. She begins to roll around and ends up on her haunches, spastically chemicals. She writhes along the expanse, chemicals, chemicals. She clings to the lawn, tearing at its velvety surface. Her mind is a synthesis of synthetic chemicals. Does meaning implode reality? A super pumped up action figure that could pass as the Hulk mauls the partition between male and female. Monster shadows pass the back face of the mirror, not that you could see back face, spoiling, soiling, touch of dirt, water evaporates, a star explodes, neuron, caution, fission. Scarecrows, illusion, it gnaws. On the lawn, it witness, gnaws. And again, she is in an abject position, crawling with haunches exposed to the sun. A sundress, strapless. The sun, our universe. She is experiencing extreme trauma. This is a world. Now she is rolling around in the grass. It rains, elation. There was a garden here, but it is overgrown, and the house is decaying. There was a forest here. She's in the central square rolling. She is a woman, and the sun makes her dizzy. Had she actually buried her brother? Was she a subversive to the state? With her fists, she begins to fight the light. The state is sexless, amped up, clamorous. We wished. No, that's not at all how it was. She wasn't screaming and rolling in the green expanse. And yes, she buried her brother, which was against the law, and therefore what she did was treason. But the state was despotic, and their laws benefited the ruling class, an upper tier of society who had removed themselves from the suffering they caused. She was depicted as abject, not subjected. The narrative was constructed by the above said party of rulers. In fact, she was a leader of her people and vocal, vaginal, megaphone. She wore the exact same toga as the men did. Her articulations of the law, vital, visual. Podium addressing the undressing. Antigone is but one example, ample, not mimetic, not total, total. One day whooping Miles between corpses, green glow there buried if the skin appears, silky birds of the seashore congruent, moistening backlash lasting between the hills. She thinks this, unborn flowers going blooming as they fell to their deaths, falling, the blooming, the swans of winter silk on hills between dissipated states of perceiving this landscape. Bombs outside the range of nationalistic dream clouds oozing, drinking splayed, his stiffened body from a battlefield, a field of indifference, fast food modulate. Breathtaking high decibel explosions, jeeps pinned down between mountains, some meanings obscured, only then, and they sped away, death in an aftermath choking. Disturbed flowers of the fallen soldier, his casket marked by the economy's drastic, refined to be disjointed, free, open, and lasting, choked up, the fallout then blooming in winter recline, managed and networked between shifts, between parties. Ripped out veins sunk in deep central nervous system, swelling soles of feet edged to driveway where car parks haul a body, a fallen soldier, to be interned. Swollen, angular, puffy. Flowers between eyes, the chrysalis, free-falling crisis, madness opening to a pitch. Hot, visceral, dull, maniacal, but dead and gone and thickening. Here as today, lost to the inexplicable, deafening, bombing land, where cars are parked, backed up, the hearse, loud load, flag draped, hunched over blackening silk, on thin ice, seeing winter distance, disdain, the endlessness, opening the body with anguish and distance, craving to fall out behind this blooming. Continuum absorbed, relentless, merging mountains, guerrilla mirage, then hunger, shitting one's pants. Daybreak, so brilliant and cool. One day languid, languishing, incensed, deliberate, laid out amid maroon velvet, cooling those eyes. Concrete machinery disabled, open, freeing meanings, deadness, a walk-through neckline struggle. A sick question followed by a sick answer, then silence. Mourning those missing, adding cynicism to the process of death. Bombing, shelling, blasting, prepping for a protocol of pre-invasion, betray again with brutalism in the back-face lit mirror. A longer view to call the disproportion criminal, nonstop deployment into an inner core dissolves. Maxing out the terrain and skin to go with the ticket, make me domestic with the cultural index. Asunder, ordinary there in the supermarket, abject, pants down around the ankles, breathing deeply, while the meat cutter slices the thin slabs congealed around the vital organs. The peacocks as a symbol cannot withstand this burden. Over and above aura and landscape, where warheads proliferate and we drop causally. A cool memory of being there, imagining suspension. A shelf. Leslie at the bus stop. We both board the same bus. We sit together and have a delightful, meaningful conversation. Insert photo of red ravens. I thought at first these birds were cardinals, but they are indeed ravens, bulbous bodies, feathery, all-knowing other life. Leslie, winged, not seeing, though seeing as interior as flow, though they might have horns. Brenda, Yes, winged with bodies porous, interiors flowing, and their bodies transparent, others with horns. Leslie, you can't hold on to the money. Brenda, there is no money. There is, and people are forced into abjection, but also money is an illusion. Money causes illusion. Leslie, baring their front teeth. Brenda, as usual. Leslie, the crocodiles. Brenda, you were swimming amongst them, Leslie. Leslie, the crocs are so beautiful. Brenda, ancient, but really not remote. They want sustenance, simultaneities, rocks speak, money disturbs the flow. Our economy forces others to eat rock cakes, literally ground down rocks mixed with salt and flour. Leslie, the man in the black robe coughs black bile. He wants us off the bus. Brenda, now we aren't going to adhere to the law. I don't appreciate that they appropriated the black of the night sky for their mission. Brenda, he cut up the tiger shark into 3 pieces and soaked the shark's body in formaldehyde. She was the shark. She is female. Formaldehyde comes from deep space. Leslie, formaldehyde is a death chemical. Oh, it's apparently the capitalist chemical choice for dousing bodies. Inside speaking, the body, it isn't subject, but is within, so to speak. Leslie, or exploding roses, velvet at this bus stop. I'm glad to be traveling. Brenda, the first shark decayed. He felt it should be replaced, so a hunter was sent out to kill another shark. A resemblance with the first shark he used was sought. The art required an additional shark. Leslie, rudders, motorboats, what did Hirsch say in regards to animals that, through their death, became art? Oceans, seas, our bus route is strange. Brenda, your cushion? Sky opening, a vitrine. The replacement specimen was a 20 to 30-year-old female caught and killed in Queensland. Leslie, filmy transparency, blue-green, our communication flickers. Bluish vastness becomes darkness. There, are you there? Brenda, yes, as in. You wonder where my children are? Well, I sacrificed them to the devil. This transaction occurred late in the night, deep in the forest behind where I live. Moist night air, smell rotting earth, fire, river, sturdy assertions while stirring cauldron, listening, cavorting lewdly amongst us. Darn right, magic night air was unbecoming to them. The others are back home in their easy chairs, surfing channels. Encroachment, that's a word that signifies territory. Now, the last 2 dialogues with Leslie, I'm going to read without voices. Brenda, milky rose-colored waves cantilevering into the ocean, a voice now banal and an estrangement, but I hear you as feminine space. Hello, Leslie, hello. Kristiva follows Ivan Fonagay, who linked specific tribes with particular forms of consonant and vowel articulation. Yes, fascinating. She reads the M in mama, for instance, as labial, nasal, liquid, and the P in papa as labial, explosive, and then proceeds to correlate these 2 sounds with those of incorporating orality and destructive anality in Freudian Fort Da game. I'm quoting Anna Smith, a Kristeva scholar. What can we attribute as necessarily and characteristically female? Bellowing what everyone thinks at once, suddenly. I've been asking myself that same question, a question beyond anatomy and corporeal forms, recycling the signatures that elicit meaning. I'm meeting Trojan women. Do tell. Holograms, they are whole, we see each other through. Wholes answer. Flower maidens, the flowers hold their human form, lying completely naked on the grasses. So sensual, I can't see you, but you are inside of me, I guess, therefore feeling. This feeling of a silky gown, unisex, lying on the grass. Maybe I perceive you in freeze frames, not instantaneously. You have yet to fling your tunic into the trees. Yes, delay, rose. Questions, frequencies. Now, yes, for you, cinematic impressions or layerings of time. A seeing inside with no screen. Trembling, but also glowing, keyed in. Expressions arising out of the body, out of our bodies. Uncertain passages floating. What is a concept? I am not floating. I didn't figure you were. Truly embodied, but not in the human sense, but in the human sense, disembodied. Sure. Tilted askance, frequencies as time sound meets up as envelopment. Space ecologies, space. The liquid-covered worm that is transforming a person who has to sleep in daylight. Your words, page 93, the public world syntactically impermanence. Relativity is so much more, yes. I sense the word complex, but what you mean is more complex, unworded. Relations as communicative, outside language, language is infantile, yet open. Photo insert, yet a Morrison's bioposy image, fake flowers scanned and manipulated to create improbable combinatory strains. These are beauty-horror hybrids, and they sustain themselves toward infinity in cemeteries and in the muted light of empty rooms. I still have time for one more. Vincent? Okay. Okay, I thought I'd read the last poem in this book. Somehow reading at the Dia makes you very parched. Makes me very parched. This is like a Allen Ginsberg poem or like a Anne Waldman poem because it's kind of long. Raw, the singularity. This could be the world. This could be the breath you take, fission, extreme acceleration and spinning. Deep within forest thickness is conduit to black hole. From there, reality could be anything, could be this or whatever appears. Nebulae, splendor, sheer transformed silhouette in black and white bone structure with death impending on cells. Along the riverbank, this could be where to rest your head, crushed mauve velvet, lavender in the breeze. He stops to say this reminds him of his mother. His mother, I'm deep within the hole I'm digging, roots go in. I don't know his mother, lavender, this scent. Passerby, urban setting, this foliage buffers, blocked off from sedimentary layers, turf. Spirits linger in trees near willows, specifically recently deceased. Why would people think so? The male is a cylindrical flower cluster, aches and fever. Frightful, hesitant layer of water disturbed by gale wind. With willow and 3 other species, one should wave them, the branches, in devotion. Willow is the mouth, lacking taste or smell. This branch symbolizes those who haven't performed good deeds or lack the Torah. One crew lifts the slabs above the roofs. One crew suspends the ladders. The edges exist and emanate or emulate these edges. Cracked Liberty Bell, cracked earth as in fault lines, formation of language around lips taught to wallow in language. Huge chains are used to lift this slice of stone and move it elsewhere. and act in precariousness as usual as time or space. This lot comes from Brazil, shimmering golden brown and white, radiant, could be eyes, could be suggestive of a life. Amalgam from this, incisors protrude, skin doused with melted snow, diluted with blood. First, though, they said they had to capture a sea lion, but the tone of the voice was not robotic, rather gentle, concerned, sincere. Start wielding different tools out of your body, slice nominal heads off. The body demands body tools. Offer all you've got. Blood mixes with mortar. Support beams made from major bone structure. The drilling is accomplished with teeth. Nails, appropriate cellular matter. Lumina now lines walls. What is local implodes onto itself, luminous flux, radiant flux. One vision belies a significant difference. Carved on a steel in a public square, a statement of desire. Where the word club came from twig of club, snake of alarm. She describes the chimpanzee screams as symphonic, hominoid ear bone, syllabic tone, fundamental units of speech twitch, swallowing, chewing, playing with sticks. Come along, little Homo neanderthalis, and bring these necessities for life. On the foothills of the Pyrenees, a significant amount of bison bones were uncovered, a hunting technique where one runs the herd off the cliff's edge and butchers them at the base. Protein for alertness, protein for prowess. If millions of mirrors were launched into the stratosphere, sunlight would be bounced away from Earth. Epic volcanoes create sulfuric plumes. This could be mimicked. Oil of vitriol, Babcock acid, poison, danger, harmful if inhaled, liquid and mist, causes severe burns, oral rat eye, rabbit, tumerigen, mutagen, reproductive effector. Deadly cloud cover shedding vulnerable bodies with showers of acid rain. Green plants of the sea could be provoked to eat up the excess carbon, bring on night. Image saturation, world flipping over image, our eyes suggest this. Prayer, semblance of unsaying amphitheater for vortex to grow as a reconfiguration of molecules into splendor, productive of sand and expanse, shimmering depth-charge molecular granulation, spaces in fences, encampments, bunkers, walls, slink through corridors of agitated water, Suna, trodden path, daily, momentary, thick, textured, padded, on iron, microsystems, heart on ear, etc. Bind sugar with other layers. This was a star. This was a bird, mammal-minded with an amphibian flair. The body is sutured, fostered. Which body? These bodies, all-purpose for home and office, dissident yet similar. Vibrations picked up on the mantel head against curtains of glass suspended. Listening offices, listening chambers. Owls crash to meet this glass. No migration, migration displacement. Come on home, your country is safe now. A veneer there, infrastructure there. The orb retracted, sucked retroactively into a vacuum that was once space. This isn't nebulousness, mono-imagination, extra mono-imaging. Or this is entirely new, undecoded, unpronounceable, arising at an angle beyond language, blending with reality as a reality without reflective surfacing. Bones appear elastic. Paleolithic deer with long hair, gorgeousness. Res extensa, intersubjective gene, want, don't see, being to be. Be it a cave of gypsum crystals, glistening but no light, stumble in the heat frantically. She was sent down to study the likelihood of life forms in structures accruing over some 400,000 years. If you don't know how to read crystals, irritation, the mind, where eternity is concerned. Enigma, like this spelunking to find an unknown, undiscovered splendor, shell-shocked from the womb, but down there so that you can only proceed with the body along, residual culture clinging. The cave is lightness, but it is not night. There is no differentiation of day and time. Yet processes continue, slow accrual, neurological center distribution, mind tunnels, gateways, conductivity, rewiring emotions from exurbia to forest. Did the hero forget to include herself? When then, or how destitute suffering awaiting? This is how they found some me, proverbial gutter or cave. Amphitheater, green zone, emergency care unit, waiting chamber, sateen silken sheets, epidermal layers. What of me, the soldier proposed in collectivity, solidarity, ideology? Landmines, booby traps, victims of ambush, the spider web allure with a trigger, the condor population as they eat the metal fragments in a downed carcass, abandoned by the human hunter. There's a map of dead space, but don't be dismayed, surviving pieces. Proposals for the living room, elliptical goddess of spring, eyelids lined with peony blossoms, so demure, so enigmatically glistening. But the end could end. Yes, no, yes, yes. The hell beings, now the monster mythology, the news is tearing up the metropolis with spiky claws. Watch how it carries off a super large lizard, plastic, that poses a threat to the Church of the Sandcastle Mound, Temple of the Holy, where they bowl in the underground cellar religiously. Kingpins. Its silhouette, the beast, glows phosphorescent green into a nuclear sky. A blimp airbrushes the same sky with a come-on for radial tires. The screaming public scatters. A dog gets away easily. It is called an irretrievable sunset. Such was cartoonish, flickering superimposition, interlude, what have you, fading, deformed, or mutating, spent uranium sandwiched between possible futures, skin to call out contact, beckoning. Hilarious, for a moment hilarious, then softening and more plangent. Whales turn up on the seashore, rudder marks tearing their skin, seabirds strangled by plastic refuse like the pull-out hair of a Barbie doll. It causes choking. Shake up the snow globe and watch the polar bears dance. All laced with spent rocket fuel, birth control pills dissolved in the oceanic mist, algae growing over the rocks. How to discontinue, refrain, disembark, tremors in the system. How organs grow different somewhere on the internet to sit on the poetic event horizon, calling out its site specificity. On the rim, or as possible futures morph into gelled resistances, we are down to the fiber now. The currency is rippling feverishly. The consequences of all the possible moves loaded into the barrel. Matter at its most primal level matters. What is matter? What matter? When they frame the question, does it matter? As if detached, attempting to save an ideal or spare it. Buckled still, but screams the partial objects revert to subject to matter. Parts of speech hang in the air, or if. Thank you.
Michael Lally was born in Orange, New Jersey in 1942. In the late 1960s, after 4 years in the U.S. Air Force, he attended the University of Iowa Writers' Workshop on the GI Bill. While in Iowa, he was almost elected sheriff of Johnson County on the Peace and Freedom ticket. Lally has had 27 books published, including the 2000 American Book Award winner, It's Not Nostalgia, and its follow-up, It Takes One to Know One, both published by Black Sparrow Press, and the 2006 edition of his long poem, March 18, 2003, written in protest on the eve of the invasion of Iraq. Just out, the CD Lost Angels, which we have here, recordings of poems from the 70s, 80s, and early 90s set to music with a cover photo by Gus Van Sant. That's really hot. Lally has worked as a film and TV actor on shows like NYPD Blue, playing a New York artist, Deadwood, and as a writer on films, including Drugstore Cowboy. Since 2006, Lally has been writing a blog called Lally's Alley, covering poetry, movies, and politics, among other topics. His blog tag reads, quote, "Just another ex-jazz musician, proto-rapper, Jersey Irish poet-actor, print junkie, film raptor, beat hipster, white Negro rhapsodizer, ex-hippie punk 60s radical organizer's take on all things cultural, political, spiritual, and aggrandizing." That's the best tag I've seen. Michael Lally's poems are very hard to excerpt because they are raps, flows, not rap as it is thought of today, though it has some DNA relation to that. But rap as the word was used in the 1960s when Lally began writing. He was in the Air Force and also a jazz piano player when he saw a copy of Frank O'Hara's lunch poems on a friend's table, picked it up, read The Day Lady Died, and was hooked. You can find Lally's entire biography in his remarkable body of poetry and prose. While the prose is mainly in the form of engrossing, time-shifting memoir, the poetry is often squarely in the present. One of the first poems I remember reading by Lally, entitled simply Life, begins, "Someone comes up to me on the street, starts talking about their love life, how fucked up it is, pushing their need." There is a hard-hitting realism to his poems. One gets the feeling one is getting life as it really is, no bullshit. All the while, aware of the extreme artifice and art that goes into the wordplay, the rhythms, the ins and outs of thoughts to get you where he's going. Lally's poems are among the most passionate I know, and he has a claim on being one of the most direct descendants of that other great Irish-American poet of the spirit, you know, the one who wrote Grace to be born and live as variously as possible. Lally has amazing crossover skills, which came forth in his artistic life, in his ties to poets such as Bruce Andrews and Ray De Palma. The anthology Lally edited, None of the Above, published in 1976, is exemplary for the way it brings together New York School and language poets under the same covers. And his Some of Us Press published Bruce Andrews' first book, which was entitled? Ed. What? Ed, okay. Edge. Some of Lally's early short poems from the 70s give a sense of this crossover in the scene at large and his place in it. Here is his entire poem, Happy Days. No more schoolboy luck, no more intuition gluttony, no more impulsive rags, just dope, some quiet lives, not yours. And yet, Lally the poet is happiest when most expansive, and this is an ability he readily resides in. When Bush and company were beating their war drums in early 2003, we decided to do an anti-war poetry reading. It took place at Paula Cooper Gallery on March 18, 2003, and featured Robert Creeley, Ann Lauterbach, and Ann Waldman, in addition to Lally. I asked Michael to participate because I knew of his political activism and had a hunch his street smarts and poetic chops could result in some verbal dynamite we could hurl at the cracked facade warmongers. Lally didn't disappoint. His tour de force poem, written for the occasion, rocked the house. A series of rhetorical questions, it gains cumulative power in its plaintive intelligence. Didn't we try to be honest, but didn't the truth keep changing on us? When I was a kid, didn't they teach us that Uncle Joe Stalin helped us win the war? When I was a man, didn't Ronald Reagan remember scenes from war movies as if they really happened and he was there, though he was in Hollywood the entire time making movies he remembered as reality? In the light of his later disease, don't we understand that? Don't we understand everything sometimes, or once? It's a great pleasure to introduce Michael Lally as the final reader in this first season of Readings in Contemporary Poetry. Please welcome Michael Lally.
Jasmine, Tunisia, how evocative. Like 40s films, black and white, yet fragrant and bursting with life. Vital in a way that's filled with the more subtle colors light and shadow provide through skills no longer needed or applied. Extent, is that what I meant? As insignificant a gesture as it is in the face of reality, I'd like to dedicate this reading to the amazing artist and activist hero, Ai Weiwei. He was arrested more than 2 weeks ago and not heard from since. He was about to board a plane to leave behind the wrath of China's repressive regime for a trip to a new exhibit, the wrath Weiwei aroused by his refusal to be repressed or kept from telling the truth as he sees it and discovers it and experiences it. But the Chinese bullies can't take the truth. Big babies full of fear that they are, like all bullies, fear their people will find out they're not who they pretend to be, all-knowing and all-powerful arbiters of everyone else's lives and dreams, as if everyone didn't know. So slow yet menacingly brutal is the show they think they're putting over. Weiwei shines a light on their lives and does it openly, then turns it into art. Have you seen the footage of his brand new studio complex being bulldozed into rubble by the regime's minions, and him recording it for all to see and calling the whole devastating experience his greatest work of art so far? What genius to turn the ham-handed tactics of these big scared babies against them in ways that must frustrate them so much they can't even think more clearly than to give him and his admirers still more proof of their stupidity and cruelty and oh so obvious fear. Like all true heroes do, who know the stakes and state the truth regardless, Weiwei pays a price for the risks he takes, and he's not the only one, as so many go unsung, but those we know best often rise above the rest because their sacrifice stands out in ways even bullies can't deny, although they still try. Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, Gandhi, the lady Aung San Suu Kyi, the man with the shopping bags in both hands who stands forever in front of that tank in Tiananmen Square, where Weiwei photographed his middle finger and sent it round the world. Those kids in Tunisia and Egypt and nonviolent protesters in the West Bank from both sides. Too many to list, too few to provide an entirely fresh history, but maybe the beginnings of a possible trend, the end of at least some of the world playing pretend about who the bad guys really are. But now it's Ai Weiwei who deserves not just admiration, but action. I know I haven't done enough. Oh, sure, I've stood by my core beliefs, thank God, most of the time, haven't you? And often paid the price for telling the truth, even if it was inconvenient or impolitic at times, or made myself look not so good. Even genuine heroics I've had my part in, as I'm sure we all have at least once, more or less. But I confess I didn't fly to Liberty Square in Cairo to take my place among the heroes of this season, like I hitched to places all across this nation in the 60s and beyond. to stand up for the truth of our common humanity in the face of racism and war, more bullying confronted and sometimes the victim of. Love, I thought then, was the answer, as so many of us did, and I still do. Not just like anyone who wakes up in an operating room or just before they go in feels all that matters is their loved ones, but two, the love of all our commonality, even when wired differently, so that simplified slogans can sway one wiring this way, the other that, to see the spirit of love in all things, not just creatures like us and those apes over there staring into our eyes with a look that is so tired of the lies about our differences, their inferiority, they know intuitively isn't real beyond the deal we've made to behave like it is. I still talk to rocks, let alone trees. And they always talk back. Mountains and clouds and meadows and shadows and the glories winged cousins bring to any view. The choice we always have to get as close as we ever will to the truth in the heart of all things. Even the despicable bullies holding Weiwei hostage as we meet here tonight to celebrate our love of all creative attempts to fulfill humanity. I wanted to write a special poem for this night, like I sometimes have before, to tell what I know as well as I know my heart's scars. But my brain's scarred now too, and it doesn't work as well as it once did, nor do the connections between my thoughts and the fingers typing this. I know I should move to voice-activated programs so I don't have to go through the hassle of retyping and retyping and retyping until the word I meant to write is finally on the screen. But I've been using my fingers to express myself in so many ways on the keys of the old portable typewrites of my tough. I meant to write typewriter of my youth and would normally make the correction, but both words make sense for that period of my life. Typewrites and tough. And electric typewriters of my 30s and early 40s and computer keyboards ever since, or the keys of pianos, upright, grand, electric, and acoustic, or organs, or Rolands, or Rhodes, or whatever was available, but I can no longer do with the same facility I once had. I know a lot of folks have the same problems who didn't have brain surgery, but the way it happened for me was sudden. Before the growth affected me, I typed and played piano as fast and as accurately as always. And then one day I didn't anymore. And that's still the way it is tonight. I can never get it right the first time, but have to try and try again until I do, like a child just learning again, but now who understands so much he never did before because too much came too easily, and what I didn't and what didn't I usually ignored. But that door, the easily, is closed. If I want to enjoy the pleasures writing and playing piano always gifted me, I know musicians much younger whose wrists or elbows or arms or vocal cords or other physical restraints have caused them to face the same crisis of inability. I'm not comparing myself or complaining, even if it may sound that way to you. I'm explaining because that's what I do. I say this is the way I'm experiencing the truth of my life right now and what I see around me. And you? The bright bursts of yellow announce a spring still struggling to arrive, forsythia and daffodils, followed by the eye-opening white blossoms of the dogwood tree in our yard, or neon pinks of the cherry blossoms in the nearby park. The more exotic blossoms on the screen or page when I try to write. Here's some uncorrected typing. And akar se it's al si fucking meningalius oh what thwart iaspor aim papantis whatever. Yes, we all noticed how the force of fucking somehow survived intact. But that's not all that's moved on. So, and whatever became of, what was it, the thing you said I had? You had enough of, not ever. But so much depends upon so much. It's become too much of a good intentions, less reality. Look at Libya, I mean Japan, or was it mine? What happened was I went, but I came back. I did, but then I stopped. I knew, but then I forgot. I was, but now I'm not. Now it's old news, the blues I play never come out right, because that connection between the keys and fingers and brain ain't, like I said, the same anymore. But when the door closes, for now or ever, as always, the window opens and new synapses replace the old flashes with bold distinctions. Like how I always found Meryl Streep and Annette Bening unattractive, no matter how much I admired their talent. Or Mitzi Gaynor's Next Door Girl Looks So Abrasive. I like the darker beauties and their darker arts. Then they removed that part of my brain that wasn't supposed to be there, and where once, having been born in the swing era, made it always about rhythm and tone, now those old ideas were gone. And whenever Meryl or Annette or Mitzi's image shines from old movies on TV, I feel actual glee. Their presence, yeah, isn't that weird? I'm going to actually see Meryl in about a week, and I'm going to tell her. I hope she's not offended. I never was attracted to you till they operated on my brain. Their presence in my living room overflowing with desires I never knew I had because I hadn't until now, and this rewiring, the Merle, Annette, Mitzi attraction and affection connection. So that when they aren't beaming from the small screen, I swear I feel no attraction or affection for them at all, but when they are, the mysteries of what I always believed was me, but now know as merely electric impulses in the thought battery that's the hybrid in my brain. The smell of rain here, or the way here smells when it rains. Don't fight the goodness in you or anyone else. Hubert Selby Jr. taught me that. You know how long it took me to type and retype and retype and retype until all the words were actually the ones I intended up there? Of course, a lot of what comes out is more poetic in some sense, like tough for youth, or angels for angles, or tripe for type, or sea age for message, meadow for Merle, and line break for apostrophe, and frustration for accuracy, and bottomless self-pity for stamina and perseverance. Timidity was never an option, although few ruled so much of what appeared as bravado. Am I making sense, and why do I feel I should? Do I repeat myself in so less exciting ways than Weiwei does? Man, I admire that guy. His presence, even just in photographs and then in films, you can see his spirit and its generosity and acceptance of what is, then using it for what can be. I've never been humble enough. I wasn't tough or noble or good enough to shine at sports, but I was smarter about most stuff than anyone I grew up around, and I had a profound respect for originality, of which I thought I had my share when it didn't seem to get me where I thought I should be. I made it known in ways that put the onus on you for not doing enough to bring justice to my cause, my due, my getting through the obstacles I knew were there, where others seemed spared from the repercussions I drew fire from. Come, let's kiss and make up, like Nina Simone always wanted, then refused to do. Original? She was, as is Ai Weiwei, who surprisingly looks up to Andy Warhol, who risked so little, although maybe not. He got shot by a woman I knew. That's right, Valerie Salinas. When she got out of the hospital for the criminally insane, where are you, Lisa? Yeah. Someone dropped her on the steps of my commune, as we called them in those days. The women who till then had been big admirers became afraid once she moved in. You're not included in this. It was just the women upstairs. Lisa lived in the apartment in the basement. They feared her constant pacing and muttering and rage at those who she thought had taken advantage of her. Like the time I came home to find the upstairs toilet plugged because she'd ripped up the house copy of her Scum Manifesto and tried to flush it, then left, as they all did, for me to plunge until the pages all came out and the toilet worked again. And my kids could use it again. And when I went away for a reading in Boston with some friends, Ed Cox, Tim Dugos, Terrence Winch, the women in this radical lesbian feminist commune told Valerie I didn't want her there, so she moved out. And when I got back and they told me, I was dismayed. I got along fine with her and kind of enjoyed the way she made all visitors so nervous with her smoke-filled pacing and muttering in our communal living room. I liked a lot of her ideas, too. She was the first person I knew to explain the difference between men and women by the nerve endings in their genitals, and taste buds on their tongues, and olfactory absorbers in their sense of smell and color recognition facets of their eyes. Men are simpler, she'd explain. They have so much less of all of that, they just miss a lot. And this subsequently, she actually did the research, and half of that book was proven true scientifically, even though she was thought of as crazy. Anyway, it was one of the reasons she said she didn't mind having sex with them for money. She became a hooker for a living after she left the house we all rented, and I moved out of not long after this, because they were so easy to satisfy, so simple-minded and biologically formed. But she only loved women and preferred their bodies and complexities, though she found the ones in our supposedly revolutionary commune, except Lisa, chicken shit. You don't know what you're missing. People I love get ignored or forgotten, poets, artists, actors, musicians. I don't always know what I'm missing. The trees always talk back. Valerie thought the solution was electricity, to somehow make men more sensitive, like the women she loved. They needed to be wired with more electricity. I understood in those first few months after the operation, when I couldn't read and then only out loud and then finally could well enough to pass, what it felt like to be a child with learning disabilities, or an adult with right-wing simplicities, or, and this was maybe the most difficult to accept, blissfully contented with only the capacity to eat and drink and hold conversations with one person at a time. Sublime satisfaction. Sometimes I'm still overwhelmed by too much stimuli, a crowd, a TV on, and phone ringing, and someone talking. At first, I couldn't see the way things are part of a bigger picture, as a single blossom blends into a landscape. Not anymore, as each item popped out, individualized and so distinct it was like a nightmare. No grasping of the whole picture, just its individual parts shouting at me through my eyes, to realize each tiny aspect of the scene as equally important and demanding of attention. Oh, it hurt my head just to open my eyes, and hearing was even more of a surprise because I couldn't close my ears but had to hear each note distinctly, and even the most complicated music, so that this horn and that one were distinct, and each voice in harmony to others were isolated in my ear, overwhelmed with all the dissonance no one else could hear. My children know what they mean to me because I always tell them, and hope my actions do too. Forgive me, friends, for being so untrue. I always mean to tell you how much you mean to me, the prominence you have in my heart. But things happen. I never start that sentence until you're gone, or I am. So let me be clear and say it here. I love you all in my own way, which is to say, I think of you often, and it always invites a smile to the ongoing project of times that is this face. As George Oppen wrote in that collection of authors' self-portraits Bert Britton once collected, under Oppen's curved line of an old man's back, he wrote, which is a very odd thing to happen to a child, and it is. Jasmine, Tunisia, how evocative. What else is there to say except free Ai Weiwei? I just finished that as you were coming in tonight. I'm just going to read a couple of excerpts from my blog after the brain surgery, and then this was titled Sunday Poet Brain Surgery. I meant to write post. I thought I'd leave that poet mistype in. Tired night, so not as much of an improvement as the past few days trying to type, but still what a long way to have come already. Typing with my left finger is faster. I only type with two fingers, but the operation was over here, so the growth was over there, so it was affecting this side. That's what I have trouble with. So I type with one finger, my left finger mostly. Also was able to read a paragraph out of time to myself for the first time silently. I got being able to read out loud a few days ago. Unfortunately, phew, that was a chore to get right. To write that, unfortunately, I had to retype it about 1 million times. The article was about Sarah Palin. How did it ever come to this? And here's another excerpt. I'm still only able to write and read a few sentences a day with much effort. And even most movies and TV are too difficult. But several days ago, I was able to watch an episode of 30 Rock and laugh at humor I would have otherwise found too broad and obvious. But that was exactly what made it enjoyable. Whereas a few days later, I tried to watch The Daily Show. And though at first I was laughing and enjoying Jon Stewart, within only a few minutes it became too complex, full of subtleties and ironies that began to actually hurt my brain, and I had to turn it off. It's too difficult to articulate now, but it feels like these are insights into the way many people's brains work or don't work. I mean, it occurred to me after that experience, I thought, oh, that's why the right-wingers are so adamant. You know? It's like their brains hurt when it's cut to subtle shit. No more fucking nuance, god damn it. You know, except the guy wasn't born here. It's the end of the story. And then just two more. excerpts from this. It's been difficult for me to listen to music since the brain surgery. The sounds that normally blend into a cohesive. I'm really struck by how articulate I was. I'm typing with one finger. My brain's hardly functioning. I mean, those who knew me. I mean, Bill called me up one day on the phone and thought it was funny and said, "Quick, what's 8 times 8?" And there's this big long silence. And then he says it again. He goes, and then I said, and I'm trying to like not get angry. And I'm like, Bill, I don't know. I can't do that. I mean, somebody handed me a phone. Somebody was on the phone and they wanted me to hand the phone to somebody else to talk to them. And I knew them both and I knew what they meant, but I couldn't figure out how do I do that? How do I hand the phone to somebody? And yet I was writing like this, pretty far out, huh? So anyway, the sounds that normally blend into a cohesive whole in most recordings, my brain was somehow atomizing into discrete units that made each musical moment sound overwhelmingly complicated, jarringly, gratingly so. Difficult to explain or articulate. I tried one day on my first outing in my little town where I was being helped by my friend Sue and ran into another friend, the great jazz pianist Bill Charlap. I was excited to communicate what I was experiencing with music, but I'm afraid I came off as a little out of my mind, which is, of course, partly what this whole experience has been about. It was really funny. I mean, he just was like, "Oh, okay, yeah." Okay. But Bill, you got to understand, man. Sounds are like. My kids said I kept saying to them, "You're so beautiful, man. You got to see your atoms." But yesterday I tried listening to some music again, and it sounded close to normal. I hit the shuffle key on my laptop, and the first tune was an old Billie Holiday recording from the early 30s. These and that and those. Beautiful tone to her voice. Followed, as it happened, by Bill Charlap's trio version of Some Other Time. As close to Bill Evans as is humanly possible, while still being Charlap. A haunting tune, one of my favorites. Anyway, I'm writing a little better, but this still took way too many repeated attempts to correct your too many mistakes, so I'll stop now. I'm leaving that one last mistake as an example of how my brain is still transposing letters. And then this is the last one I'll read. Just took a pretty brisk walk, several blocks in the cool, crisp air. The first walk I took by myself, a bright and shiny day, at times almost chilly, but felt so good to be out and feeling stronger. The caw of a lone crow was so sharp and clarion, it felt like the definition of what it means to be alive. The last leaves falling, the endless, we hope, natural cycles. How wonderful and fine life is when the possibility of losing it becomes so current and realistic. To be alive, what can disturb the awe of that realization? Today, nothing. Thanks. And I have one last short poem that involves a little technology. And if I had known it was that easy, I'd have done more. But some wonderful person, angel, handed me the limited little run of a poem I wrote back in the early 70s that I completely forgot about. It's not in any of my books or anything. And I just want to read it, because I'll be reading it sort of new, and I'll read it with you. It's called The Secret. John Ashbery made me sit down. He then plucked a single eyebrow from a number of newspapers and gave it to me. He ordered me to bend down on my long cylindrical back and loosen my hand and place the girls against the skin of my effort region. He created my movements and instructed me to coastline the kindness against my mind with both hands. He then ordered me to close my supernatural world and warned me that if I wanted perfect revolution, I should not lose historical establishment or open my gift messenger or try to Indian up when he shifted my real interest to a position of destiny. He grabbed me by the right stairs and tanked me around. I had an invincible desire to clutch language itself through my most recent values, but John Ashbery put his scraping over my point. He commanded me to surprise myself only with the sense of buoy that was coming from a marvelous clarification. He then interfered that I should let my reception area have at last clapped through the streets to my bodybuilding. He gently pushed me into the edges. I awkwardly poisoned for a moment and then came upon the castaway. I thought that I must have stability and rejuvenated the spokesman in which John Ashbery had arms upflung. He dried out the garage, saying that I went autobio to the chalice because my sweater had been soaked for hours in no light. I've told you, he said, the secret. I laughed and patted him on my body. And now for a wonderful, I wish actually I could work the light with it, but I can't. So for a wonderful example of my high technical skills. This is a poem I've been closing with for years. It's the only thing I'm reading tonight besides that Ashbery thing that's from before the brain operation, which is a little, almost a year and a half in a month or two. Anyway, so I usually close with this little poem called My Life Too. When I was 10, it works. I thought I was Irish, even though I was born in the USA. When I was 20, I thought I was black, even though my skin is pink and freckled, my hair is straight, and I have no African ancestry. When I was 30, I thought I was queer, even though I was married and had 2 children, and all my fantasies and obsessions and compulsions and attractions were and had always been about women. When I was 40, I thought I was a movie star. Actually, the movie star I was living with at the time. This photo was taken outside our house in Santa Monica. I thought I was a movie star, even though the movies were terrible and I was terrible in them, and almost no one knew them or who I might have been in them. When I was 50, I thought I was enlightened, even though I wasn't. But of course, I was and am enlightened, as I was and still am an Irish black queer movie star. That's the reading, but I just thought I'd point out, one of my brothers was in the Army. That was like during the Korean War. That's my oldest brother, the priest. And another brother, 2 of my sisters, and our parents. And that's me and my buddy in basic training the first time we got leave. His name was Murphy. Everybody called him Big Murph. I can't believe that's me, huh? Isn't it fucking, what George Oppen said, right? What happens to the child, Isn't it interesting? I didn't actually look like that all the time when I was 30. I was deliberately trying to ham up my newfound queerness. And that's Madame Binh. Does anybody remember who she was? She was the negotiator for the North Vietnamese in the Paris peace talks. And she was a hero to a lot of leftist radicals. And like I said, that was outside our house in Santa Monica. Penny's in mine. And yeah, well, the rest of it's obvious. Thanks, everybody.